954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ, or Iglesianicristo.
And welcome to Sunny Side Up Family Talks, where here, family talks really matter. And I'm super excited because this is our first episode. This is going to be our pilot episode of this new podcast where we really are here to talk about things that matter to families. And I'm very fortunate to have joining me. My name is Brother Robert Tapalis here, but I'm very fortunate to have joining me this morning is Sister Joy Ali. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Thank you for all of you who are tuning in. We're really excited to really dive into some really meaningful topics that really hold a lot of value, not just for anyone, but for all of us. Because as we discussed earlier, family talks really do matter. And as you know, with everything that's going on in the world, it's tough to hold these conversations. But it matters, and it's really important that we do. And sometimes we don't know where to start, right? And that's why we're diving into this, so that we can share just personal experiences, and then to also let you know there's hope. It's not the end of the road.
And that's a really good point that you make, Sister Joy, because one of the things that
But
this podcast really
matters, and it's really important that we do. And sometimes we don't know where to start, right? And that's why we're diving into this, so that we can share just personal experiences, and then to also let you know there's hope. It's not the end of the road.
And that's a really good point that you make, Sister Joy, because one of the things that this podcast really
matters, and it's really important that we do. And sometimes we don't know where to start, right? And that's why we're diving
the salt, instead of having an actual conversation, right? Because maybe it's too
into this, so that we can share just personal experiences, and then to also let you know there's hope. It's not the end of the road.
Then other parts of that dynamic of communication starts to really diminish and fall apart, because healthy relationships come from being able to have meaningful conversations. And that's what we're really hoping to be able to bring to you here with Sunny Side Up. And of course, tell them a little bit about what does Sunny Side Up mean? Why do we use Sunny Side Up?
You know what? I love Sunny Side Up. First of all, I love it as far as food, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of my
That's how I love
ways.
my eggs.
Right. That's one of the ways that I like my eggs prepared. However, we are located in one of the sunniest states in the nation, right? Florida. And it's always a sunny side up here, especially here. For those of you who are tuning into us, that's the reason why we bring these types of topics, is because they're very meaningful, and there's always a sunny side up to it.
Yeah, and we want these conversations to be positive focused. There's so much, you mentioned it in the opening, that there's so much negativity in the world. There's so many things that can really create just this air of really just sadness and depression. We wanted to give an opportunity for us to really focus on what's important, what's happy. And that's why the name of the show was Sunny Side Up, because we're always going to look at everything from the sunny side. Because we're from Florida, we're always going to be looking at things from the sunny side perspective. And I'm super excited about today's topic because, obviously this is one that I think really is near and dear to both of our hearts with our families, right? And maybe because this is our first episode, we tell you a little bit about ourselves. So I'm Brother Robert Tapalis. I live here in sunny Tampa, Florida, and I have a family of myself, my beautiful wife. We have two children, one is now married and into the throes of adulthood, right? And we have our first grandchild, and we also have a daughter, my wife and I, who is now in her early 20s and just finishing college. So that's the perspective where a lot of our conversation is going to come from. For me, is having to have gone through those different seasons of watching our children grow and evolve into adulthood, and now one of them is an adult and having a family of his own. And for you, Sister Joy, you've got a slightly different perspective, which is, I think, what makes it so cool.
And so the season of life that I'm currently in is, for those of you who are just tuning in, my husband and I, we've been married for almost 20 years. Yeah, I mean, 20, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge
Yeah,
today.
I mean, 20 years. I mean, we stop and we think about it. We're like, whoa, that's a long time. And so we have 3 young children. Our oldest is 14 years old. So he's right there in that teenage year. And then we have our second one, who is 12. He's going to be 13 soon. So my 14-year-old is a boy. My 12-year-old is also a boy. And then my youngest, she's 8. And
the princess.
yeah, well, and
There
she
has
would
to
tell
be
you,
one.
Yeah, there is, and thankfully we're so grateful to have her. She would tell you, and she would tell many of us, I'm not just 8 years old anymore. As of this, this episode, she'll tell you she's 8 and a few quarters.
I was going to say, I'm not 8 anymore, Mom. I'm 22. So
That's what it almost seems like sometimes. But yes, that's the perspective that I'm coming from, is, being married for about 20 years, and then we have our 3 children. So I love these types of conversations because for you, you've gone through this season that I'm in.
it's better. I think the term is we've survived it.
That's what it seems
most
like.
parents who've survived their children going through the teen years, and of course your daughter hasn't quite gotten there yet, because that's a whole different dimension of teenhood. But it is, and I think in also one of our hosts, Sister Audrey, is a mom, a new mom, right?
Mom, yeah.
And a new mom soon to be.
Yes.
And we're really excited when we're able to, all 3 of us, get together and have conversations about that season of life, because we want these conversations that we have on the show to be as relatable as possible, and so we have all of these different perspectives, and I think that that's going to help in carrying on a lot of these conversations, because one of the things about our show is that we want these conversations, these family talks, to happen long after the show is done. We want you to carry these conversations about these topics into your home with your families, because that's really what we need to do. Is our mission, if you will, is to encourage more open conversation amongst our families. And that's why I think today's topic is going to be really one that hopefully resonates with a lot of people. And for mine and yours background, obviously it already does have an impact, because today's topic is about the importance of religion and faith in the household, and what role does it really play in making that family so much more solid and so much more structured, versus ones where maybe religion doesn't play such an important role. You want to maybe start off by talking a little bit about the role of religion with your family and the duties that you and your children and your husband, Brother Billy, have.
Yeah, this is definitely a heartbeat and something that's very near and dear my heart. And for those of you who are just now listening, the background of my family, we're members of the Church of Christ, and I'm an organist. I'm a choir member. I have also several other duties in there's an organization in the Church of Christ called the Christian Family Organizations. And we're going to talk a little bit, I would love to talk about this organization because it's composed of different categories and seasons also, for those that are married, those are of our youth members who are not yet married, and then our younger little lambs in the church. So I have duties in the Christian Family Organizations, which you might hear me refer to them as the CFO. My husband is a CWS teacher, and there's another acronym that's right out there for those of you who are just tuning in. CWS stands for our Children's Worship Service. And he's a children's worship service teacher, and he's a deacon, and he also holds duties in the CFO, or the Christian Family Organization. All my children are also church officers. They all are choir members in the children's worship service, and they also, my oldest is also an active member of the Christian Family Organization.
So when they, in the Church of Christ, obviously, and you and I both belong to the Church of Christ. We see children as young as what you were mentioning in the CWS, the Children's Worship Service. That's like literally the youngest age to become an officer in the
Yes.
church. And so there's responsibility, obviously, that's associated with that. And one of the things that's always been, to me, so fascinating about having your children start at a very early age with taking responsibility.
Yes.
Even outside of church, there's always evidence that says that giving your children responsibility at an early age is a great way for them to start learning discipline and learning
yes.
structure.
100%.
Washing the dishes, taking on chores, doing things around the house, for example. But I think taking office in the church gives a whole different sort of spectrum to
for sure.
what responsibility means. Because if you are, and to me, the first thing that comes to mind is the Children's Worship Service choir members. Because being a choir member isn't just showing up one day and then singing a hymn,
Yes.
right? There's
Yes.
a little bit of work
There are more
that
variables,
they have to
yeah,
get
to
up
that.
to.
Exactly.
Tell them a little bit about what, like, your daughter would have to go through, or other CWS officers would have to go through.
This brings such a good point, because I think today sometimes we get a little bit, when we hear the word responsibilities or you have another role to take, there's this gravity to it, right? And naturally, as humans, we're like, ooh, I don't know if I can take on
a
that
lot of weight.
Yeah,
It's a lot of weight.
and as
Yeah.
parents, let's get real. You're like, I got to give my kids responsibility. That's just an added task. As a parent, you feel, okay, I know that this task is given to my child, but I am the parent that has to supervise this.
They can't drive themselves to choir practice.
Exactly.
That's the
So you're thinking, oh, is this the right move? But I'm telling y'all, it is, because it adds value. It's not just the responsibility itself. And as parents, sometimes we want our kids to have all the information. We're information pushers, right? We're like, here, this is what you need to do so that you can be successful. But it's okay that they might not get it right the first time, and that's okay. But as a choir member, as young as our children are, like, they can start at around, I believe it's 8 years old or 7 years old. They have to take on the responsibility of preparing their hymn binders, their hymns, right? Making sure that the things that they're wearing are appropriate for the worship service, even for choir practices, making sure that they're that. And there's a dress code. Are we adhering to the dress code? Are we on time?
that's the big one.
Okay,
Teaching an
parents-
8-year-old to be on time, which I get the feeling that for them, it's probably easier for them to kind of be on time because they aren't overwhelmed yet with all of the other things that, like, for example, a teenager would be. All the other distractions, right?
Yes.
They're focused on one thing, right? So was that kind of the experience that you had with her?
Yes, and we still are, and I'll tell you, it's still a learning process. We're still there. But that's part of the journey, and these are things that also allow us to have meaningful conversations, because that kind of responsibility or that kind of duty or office adds value to not only us as a family, but for her, she knows the importance of it. We have conversations about why do we have to be on time? Why is it important that I have to prepare? So these are things that actually hold substance, and it's not just, okay, well, it's fun. And we like to do fun things.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with fun things, but this actually holds something that's so deep in our core. And it's something, can you imagine, for our youth members, this is something they grow up with.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful to see it, and it's just going to grow. If we continue to nurture it, it will grow.
To follow up on that point, where just because it's not fun, it doesn't mean it's not something that you can just forsake, right? That you can just set aside. And I think that that's one of the big lessons is that they learn, is that all of a sudden the world is bigger than just me having a good time.
Yes.
Right? Because
That's a hard
just
lesson.
because I didn't feel like getting up today because I was a little lazy, I'm just going to skip choir practice.
Yes.
Or today, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I'm not going to perform my duties. At 8, 9, 10 years old, that's a time in life where it's so easy to just kind of take things for granted and set things aside. And I think giving them this responsibility early, where they learn this is a promise that you're making to God,
Yes.
right? Because as adults, when we take office, we're taking an oath, right? We take an oath, and we're not taking an oath to me or to you or to somebody else. We're making an oath to God, and I think that what that teaches our children is that the world is more than just what revolves around us. There are other people that depend on us. We have responsibilities and obligations to God, to the church, to our fellow choir members that we have to meet. And so, yeah, I may not really feel into it today, but I know that I'm going to have to do it. And I know that there's a struggle because, like, with our son RJ when he was small, and this is the story that always sticks to me, is we enrolled him in karate class because we said, he needed to have karate class because we need to know how to, he's going to defend himself. And when he was a young kid, and I was hoping that it was going to be a way to teach him some discipline and to teach him how to be a little bit more structured. And
That's how I would think any parent who enrolls them in a karate.
in a
You're like,
karate
yeah,
or
it's a
martial
good
arts class, this is a good way to teach them discipline or
self-defense,
whatever.
okay.
But almost immediately, super excited the first couple of weeks, and then next thing you know, it's like, I'm a little lazy. I'd rather stay home and watch cartoons, or rather play on my video games or whatever it is. So slowly, you start to see just his lack of wanting to go, and like with anything, right? You miss the first time, then it's easier to miss the second time and the third time, and the problem was, I prepaid for the whole thing, so I'm thinking you're gonna go.
You're gonna go.
You're going to go kicking
Exactly.
and screaming. You're going to go. But the difference is when he became a choir member in the CWS, in the Children's Worship Service, it's a completely different mentality. Because the other CWS kids that he's with are all the same way. Like, let's go. He looked forward to it. He used to actually be the one to tell us that if he's going to be late, nothing like getting lectured by a 9-year-old.
Oh, goodness. But, those are the best moments when it's our children, like, don't forget, Mom, don't forget, Dad.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to make sure that I'm there on time. I want to be there. And that's just one of the beautiful pieces that you get out of it. I believe in making sure and encouraging that our children are active participants.
Right.
When it comes to our religion, when it comes to our, faith-based activities like this, because it has that value. They see that importance.
Well, and I think what it does is it builds sort of the foundation. We talk about having a good moral compass, right? We want our kids to just fundamentally know the difference between right and wrong, and they want us to be able to say, this is a bad thing, this is a good thing, and that moral compass that's developed is something that comes from experience, obviously, but also in the church as youth, they're taught those fundamentals because the difference of knowing what's good or bad is a byproduct of what it is that your environment teaches you, right? So if you're around an environment where you're normally seeing that vandalism and stealing happens regularly, then you're thinking it's okay, that it's good, right?
Yes.
Versus being in an environment where doing the right thing, helping people, loving one another, honoring your commitments. When that's what you're surrounded with, then that teaches you that's what's good.
Exactly.
Shirking your responsibilities is bad. That's where I think it plays such an important role for them as youth to be able to be surrounded by others who feel the same way. But that's, as children. What about for husbands and wives? In the relationship between parents, especially when they're parenting, being active at church for you and Brother Billy, how was that in terms of when he first, became a member of the church? Because like me, Brother Billy found the church later, became converts, right? And sometimes when you become a convert to a church, you go. You attend, I'm appeasing my spouse by going to service, but that's about the extent of it. I don't want to take on any additional responsibilities. I don't want to take on any duties. I want to still spend my Sundays watching football. But he is just so active in church, spending his time there, and he does it with passion and with love when he's doing it. What was it about, how did that come about? You think with him?
I love having one of my favorite conversations that I have with Brother Billy, my husband, is because he he has been converted into the church, he brings on this perspective, like, and I love it because the conversation that we have, he's like, do you know how fortunate and how blessed you are to be born as a member of the church? And I go, well, you actually bring on a very valuable perspective too, and I say this to Brother Billy. I say, because you're coming, you know what it's like out there. He goes, and then he'll stop me every time. You don't even want to know what it's like out there. It's just ugly. It's just not the place to be.
Oh my gosh. He and I are so on the same page. It's frightening because I've said that very same thing. Having come into the church later in life for me is, you don't take for granted the fact that you were born into this church and have never had to experience the hardship of not being in the church. And that's sometimes a double-edged sword, because sometimes the people who've been in the church, the youth who've been in the church for so long, they feel like, what did I miss out on? What are the things that I didn't get to do because I was, in the church? Because you were raised by parents who were very, very devout, right? But I say the same thing, is you don't know how lucky you are, because hope doesn't exist outside the church.
And that's exactly
right?
what he says.
And the feeling of hopelessness and despair are things that overwhelm you, because in the church we believe that no matter what we're going through, no matter what we're going through today, this is all temporary.
Yeah.
Everything that happens to us is temporary. And we know that, when the time comes, in the end, that there's a greater gift for us, right? There's salvation, there's, the things that we work towards every day, versus the people who don't have religion and don't have a faith-based household. Like, everything they do is just for the here and now and what exists in this world.
And what's interesting for me, because I've had this all my life, I can't imagine a life without that. Like, what is that? And he goes, exactly.
100%.
It exists. I'm like, that's, to me, it blows my mind, because I can't imagine living a life, waking up going, okay, so what's my purpose in life? Because I've always had that. And for him, he's like, that's the reason why it's out there. It's not, and there's such, value in our faith that drives us and motivates us and inspires us.
Well, and I think what happens is that, the church creates sort of this, and I know the term is sometimes overused, but it's a safe space for us.
Yes.
Because here, when you go to service with your family, with your kids, and you bring them with you, right? That's really what we're talking about, is not just being in a religion where you're just what they call non-practicing, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Jewish, I'm Catholic, I'm Protestant, I'm Muslim, but these religions are just a way to identify me, right? But I'm not really that. It's just a label. We're talking about being more than just a label.
Yes.
We're talking about serving and actually fulfilling and being what it is that you say you are. So, as members of the Church of Christ, that means attending worship service and never missing. It means bringing your kids and your family to the activities and supporting the Christian family organizations. Because the whole point of these organizations is to keep the families together, so this way they're able to thrive and have these conversations. And that's why I think that you can see the dynamic is so different between the families who have sort of these strong religious foundations and the ones where sadly they don't. And the children often look like they're lost, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, but it's not too late. It's
Right.
not too late. It's not too late. So if you are out there and you're struggling, you feel like you've come to a dead end, mom, dad, whoever you are, it's not too late to start these conversations. And prayer is what has held our family together. You have to, and it's a way that it's another conversation. That's exactly what a prayer is. It's a conversation that we're having with our Almighty God,
Right.
Together as a family, and that's why conversations really do matter.
Right. Well, family talks, right?
Yes, for sure.
I think that's a good name for a show, Family
I
Talks.
think it's a pretty good too.
Well, and I think that one of the things that we want to drive home is that whatever that conversation is going to be, it's just important that you have the conversations.
Yes,
Because,
no matter how uncomfortable it is,
Yeah.
it's so important.
well, and silence is never a solution. You don't have the ability to resolve or heal unless you're having conversations. And families, especially, imagine living in a household with your children and the parents who never talk, who never have conversations. And as parents, you and I both, we always want to be the ones that our kids will always come to,
Yes.
right? No matter what it is.
100%.
At the end of the day, whatever is a problem, whatever you're challenged with, whatever you're struggling with, it doesn't matter whether you think your parents are going to be mad. They should be the ones you go to, because in life, with every other person in your life, the people who will always be there are going to be your parents.
That's right.
And being able to have those open conversations, I think, is really what we're striving for, what we want our kids to be able to feel comfortable doing. And that's what the show is about.
Yes.
In future episodes, we're going to be talking about strategies and better ways for
Yes.
parents to be able to engage in conversations with their kids. And we're going to have real conversations about husbands and wives communicating, because
That's
the
gonna be
channel of
fun.
communication is, I might have to bring a special guest for that show that,
special
that concerns me. But I think that being able to have these conversations openly and continually are going to be sort of the catalyst for starting to build a stronger, more firm and more faithful family element.
Oh, absolutely. And that is
So,
the core.
but one of the biggest problems that we have though with this show is that we are the fastest 30 minutes on podcasts and radios. So it's unfortunately we're at the bottom of the hour of the show, Sister Joy, but this has been such a really, really enlightening conversation. And enlightening most of all because realizing you and I exactly share much of the same point of view.
We do.
But I think one of the things that we're going to really try to drive home in the episodes is we love you as our audience to please chime in on the live chat and let us know whatever questions you've got. We've got our team that's manning the chat that will help in being able to answer your questions and maybe bring those questions up so we can answer them live for you. We want this to be more than just a conversation of us talking at you. We want to talk with you. But for now, we want to thank you all for joining and spending time with us here on this first episode, our inaugural episode of Sunny Side Up Family Talks. But for now, this is Brother Robert Topalis coming to you from here at the studio. And Sister Joy,
Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to more conversations that really do matter.
we'll see you soon here on Sunny Side Up.
We are presenting the iglesianicristo Sign Language Guide, Android and iOS version. We gladly introduce the new interface of our INC Sign Language Guide, Android, and the much-awaited iOS version. The INC Sign Language apps is a project of the Christian Society for the Deaf under the Christian Family Organization's Office